What is the scariest thing you've witnessed in the middle of the night? Was staying the night at a new lady friend's house when I woke up at 4 AM to the strange sensation of someone watching me. I slightly opened my eyes, but didn't move. I saw someone staring at us from the partially open bedroom door. Her dog took notice at the same time and I burst out of bed when the dog started barking. She wakes up in a panic and I yell for her to lock the door while I chase the intruder. She lived in a 3-story townhouse and the bedroom was on the 3rd floor. So I run down the stairs, then turned the corner to the next flight of stairs only to see the front door swinging open. She's yelling from the bedroom wondering what's going on. So I'll let her know that someone broke in. She then tells me that it was probably a psychotic ex-boyfriend that still has a key. Great. The next morning, we're getting ready to head back to place when I realize that my shoes were missing. The bastard stole my favorite pair of shoes. It was pretty wild having that feeling of someone watching you and having it be real. Good lord, I hope she changed her locks. Was riding along with my dad who was a trucker. It was Christmas break, and sometime while driving through the night, he shouts, "Oh no," over and over again. I was laying in the truck cabin bed playing my PlayStation on the little TV, so I was a bit concerned. We hadn't hit anything. He tells me to put my shoes on and we gotta help, and tells me to dial 911. So dad pulls over, and I see it behind our tractor trailer. A speeding car was going too fast and had rolled multiple times down a steep embankment. So we went to see if we could do anything while we waited for a family of 4, 2 kids in the back, no seat belts, no kids seats. Everyone inside was a crumpled bloody mess. Once ambulances came, we left. They arrived pretty quick and though I can't say for certain, I was pretty sure the whole family had passed. Kinda messed me up a bit. Had never seen a body in that state, or a dead body outside of a funeral. Even to this day, 20 plus years later, I still think about what I had seen, even after going into the medical field and witnessing worse. God dang, that's something to see as an adult, never mind a kid. I cut down a tree in my backyard one afternoon. The tree was in front of my backyard slider, so at night there was a lot more light coming in from the neighbors' lights and street lights. I get up the next morning before sunrise to make my coffee and I saw a shadowy figure down the hall. I yelled, "What the frick?" At the moment I didn't realize that now more light was being let in by the lack of tree it cast my shadow on the wall. So basically I was a 37-year-old dude that was scared of my own shadow. This is my personal favorite. Thanks for sharing. When I was around 8 I woke up to hear my parents whisper yelling. Turns out someone was beating on the back sliding glass door with a baseball bat. Turns out he was drunk and mistook our place for his EXS. Still terrifying to think he found his ex afterwards. Primitive camping in the Boundary Waters alone. I had a full-blown moose walk up on me. Honestly feared for my life for a solid 4.5 minutes. The police banging my door at 3 AM looking for a missing teenage girl, even though I knew my daughter was safe in her room. It still freaked me out. I was 13 at home asleep, 4:35 AM, and awoke to what sounded like a plane or train hitting the house, windows smashing, car alarms blaring, large objects falling and dogs barking. I didn't know what it was. I got up and fell over. The ground was still moving. It was a 7.1 earthquake not too far away from my home. I was terrified. This exact thing happened to me. Our house backs onto train tracks, so I legitimately thought that a train had derailed into it, but it also turned out to be an earthquake. When I was very young my brother gave me a NES and I would stay up playing it. One night, my dad wasn't home and my brother was gone. It was just my mother and I in the house and I had been playing Mario Bros for a couple hours. IDK how late it was, cause I was a kid, but this is what got me. To this day, I don't know what it was and my mother says she cannot remember this happening. When I got tired and turned off the NES, I remember I turned around toward the hallway to go look for my mother and I was surprised to see her standing in the doorway. I don't know how long she had been there, but she stood there like a statue. At first I called out, something like, "Hey mom," but she didn't reply. I realized something was off because she was perfectly still and just staring at me without blinking and it didn't look like she was breathing. She was just a static figure. At the time, I didn't know any better, so I walked toward her, asking if she was alright, but nothing, no response. The whole time her head kept tracking me and no blinking. The last thing I remember is the scene changing and she was back to normal. This was a long time ago, so I don't remember how I would get her to stop being in that statue state, or if she just got out of it on her own. All I remember is that it happened several times, and each time I would ask her if she was okay and go to her and hug her. Sometimes I would cry cause she freaked me out, but then I don't remember how that would end. My memory just skips to us in the kitchen or my dad walking in and then her snapping out of it and continuing like normal. I very vividly remember on one of the occasions I got really close to her with a chair and kept looking at her face, but she wouldn't react at all. I wonder what that was. Sounds like focal seizures. I live on a small farm in South Texas, about 40 acres, and one time at about 1 o'clock in the morning, my entire family and I heard a woman scream from somewhere behind our house. Like this shrill shriek. Our neighbors, who also live on a considerable amount of land, were on vacation, and our neighbor on the other two sides is a nearly 700-acre ranch. My dad went out with a flashlight and a gun but couldn't find anything. The following dawn we found out it was a mountain lion imitating a scream before it ate some of our goats and dragged one into its cave. Mountain lion was probably in heat. Their mating call sounds like women being murdered violently. I once woke up from a nightmare about a demonic little girl to my little sister hovering above my bed. I freaked TF out and punched her in the nose. She had her own nightmare and was standing over me because she was debating whether or not to wake me up. We spent the rest of the night watching Disney movies. Poor girl. Maybe she tried to wake you up gently and caused you to dream about a young girl. I often incorporate things I can hear into my dreams. Music, people, sounds, so maybe she was just too scared to be loud, but you still heard her. My time to shine. I was at an Airbnb with some friends in a city we were visiting. We had a good night out in town and after some drinks we went back to the Airbnb to sleep. I slept in the living room on the couch. Middle of the night I woke up, sensing something was off. I don't know how I could sense this, but in the kitchen I see a dark silhouette of a person. At first I thought it was one of my friends getting some water or something, but then I quickly realized it was not any friend of mine. A complete dang stranger. I jumped out the couch, still not really believing this isn't a dream, and said firmly, "Who are you?" The person then quietly said, "Hey." I said, "What's going on?" "Who are you?" Getting ready to defend myself. I quickly realized this person was S-faced, mumbling and stumbling. It turned out to be a college student from the college nearby. They got so blacked out and somehow entered through the front door. It was freezing outside and he was shivering. I let the guy sit down on the couch, gave him some water, and when he came to, he decided he really wanted to leave. I asked him if he knew how to get home and he insisted he did. None of my friends woke up through this encounter, and to this day no one really knows about this except the friends that slept through all this. When I was 8, we moved and I had to share a room with my little brother. There was an empty room in the basement, but my parents didn't want me staying there. Finally, after months of begging, they reluctantly let me have the basement room to myself. Not long after, I was up too late reading when I saw a pair of gleaming eyes staring at me through the window. I knew it was a vampire. I cowered under my blanket until morning, and never slept in that room again. In hindsight, it was definitely a cat. Definitely a vampire cat. My daughter, 4 years old, black hair, pale skin, came into our bedroom in the middle of the night, hair in her face, middle of the bed by our feet, and started climbing up towards me and my spouse. Remind you of a movie? This happens to so many parents that we've all probably been traumatized by this at some point in our lives. My daughter just stood by my bed waiting for me to wake up, since she assumed that I'd heard her walk in. Scared the frick out of me. A few years ago, while my mom was doing laundry at like 9 PM, a woody toy on the floor, without any input, said, "You're my favorite deputy," and my mom nearly had a heart attack. A white figure walking slowly towards me. Unfortunately, I had fallen asleep while reading and left my lamp on. My mother had woken up to use the bathroom in the night and noticed the light from the hallway, so came into my room to turn it off. In her white dressing gown, I am incredibly short-sighted, so without my glasses on woke up when she came in the room and saw the blurry white coming towards me. We both screamed so loud we woke the rest of the family up. After that she promised never to turn the lamp off again if I promised to contribute to the electricity bill if I left light on all night. Seemed better than another heart attack. I had a similar experience sleeping over at a friend's house in high school, but the terrifying figure was my own dang self in a huge mirror at the end of the hall. Thank goodness I realized before I screamed. Back in 2009 my mom, brother, and I still lived with her in her condo. She'd been diagnosed with breast cancer and both my bro and I were leaving college for the time being to take care of her. So I was home, and she was pretty sick from treatment, but my brother was still upstate as he hadn't gotten out of school yet. My room had sliding glass windows that led to a semi-flat rooftop that was shared with basically all the other condos on one side of the street. One night I was on my computer, depressed as crap listening to music too loud to drown my feels, when my mom came into my room. Mind you, she wasn't walking around much because meds made her tired and I was up a flight of stairs from hers. She asked me if I was walking around. I told her no, I'd been sitting here with music when she grabbed her chest and looked terrified. I jumped up from my chair by the window and ran to her thinking she was having some kind of reaction when she just shouted, "Get away from us." I realized she'd been looking behind me. I turned and saw a man in a hoodie looking into my window. He'd flinched away when my mom shouted and was walking away like he'd been caught loitering. I remember feeling like ice had flooded my veins when I realized he could have been watching me at my desk for who knows how long. We called the cops and they basically did nothing. They told us to lock the windows and keep a bar across them in case they tried to break in. I decided keeping a knife by my bed that was within view of the window was the only way I would be able to sleep while there again. Okay, what the frick? My dog walking into my bedroom. She was afraid to walk up the stairs a few days ago, so just imagine the surprise when a formless creature jumped onto my bed. This image made me laugh. I'm a 25. My brother is now 17. This happened a good few years back now. When I lived at home with my parents, I shared a room with my little brother. I was about 15, so he was about 7 years old. He used to often sleepwalk and talk in his sleep, but this became a regular thing, so I knew how to deal with it and calmly walk him back to his bed and lay him back to sleep. One night I was in my room, awake playing COD. It was like 2 AM on the weekend, so I had all the lights off in my room other than the light on my TV. My brother had been sound asleep in his bed behind me for a while, when out of nowhere suddenly, he sits straight up in his bed, looking dead forward. His head slowly turns 90 degrees to face towards me. He had a completely blank expression on his face, almost like he was staring straight through me. Then out of nowhere, his eyes shoot wide open and he starts to scream. This scream was horrifying. It looked like he was possessed by some sort of demon. I knocked the frick out of there and woke my mum and told her to come with me, but by the time she had woke up and came in, he was back asleep in his bed as if nothing had happened. I've always remembered this story and it freaks me out to this day. Something about the look on his face stays with me. I think he has a demon buddy, bro. All jokes aside, that's fucking scary as heck. I got goosebumps trying to imagine it. Our house had a break-in during the night. Our daughter was sleeping in the family room because she'd moved her bed to her college apartment. She came screaming up the stairs that someone was trying to kick in the door. Then we heard it. The whole house shuddered a bit with each strong kick at a door. My husband grabbed his shotgun, which wasn't loaded, and raced down the stairs. I called 911. After I spoke with the operator for a minute or two, the noise from downstairs stopped. I handed the phone to my daughter and ran downstairs myself, mad to find out what was going on. My husband was walking around the downstairs looking for intruders, and both kitchen doors were open. We have 2 kitchen doors on either side of the house, one on the street side, and one by creek. The intruders had kicked in the creek side door, and not very intelligently, they kicked in the hinge side, instead of the lock. They got the door open just about when my husband ran into the kitchen. At that time he manipulated that part of a shotgun that sounds like one is getting ready to fire it. When the intruders heard that noise, they left and ran away. The local cop on duty showed up pretty quickly after that. Even though the crisis was over, my heart felt like a huge, strong thing squeezing in my chest. The cop checked the house and the neighborhood, but couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. He helped my husband get the broken door secured for the night and recommended that we get a security system. We didn't go back to sleep that night. The police never did catch the actual culprits. There were two groups of interest. Two groups of teen boys who tended to get into trouble were both sleeping out at night. We did get the security system, and a few years later started keeping dogs. Large dogs. Few things make an intruder crap bricks like the sound of a shotgun chambering a shell. Glad nobody was hurt. My parents had a full-size sliding glass door to their second floor deck. Once when I was like 10, my parents went away and I slept in their king-size waterbed. In the middle of the night there was this extremely bright light shining through the bedroom door, along with the sound of helicopters. Scared the crap out of me. It was 3 big army helicopters, the 2 propeller type, I'm guessing searching for someone. When I was about 8, I woke up in the middle of the night to a woman scream crying outside. She kept screaming at the top of her lungs for someone to help her for what seemed like to 8 me, like 20 minutes. I looked outside my window and saw no one. I had my window open one afternoon and kept hearing someone whistling and calling for their dog, but it was super repetitive and creepy sounding. After a while I finally looked out the window and nobody was there. I went outside to look around and finally found out that it was someone's cockatoo shouting out of someone's window. Not even joking. Was heading home from a graveyard shift one night at about 11 PM. Past the playground near my house and there was a dead-set guy standing in the park in a full Hessian suit, bag over his head and everything with eye and mouth holes cut out. Suffice to say I noped out of there fast AF. The sound of a woman screaming outside the chalet I was staying at, the nearest chalet to ours was about 100 meters away, but this scream was right outside ours. My ex looked out of the windows and couldn't see anything. A lot of the people we spoke to about it heard it and they all thought it was just outside their own. Could be a fox. Contrary to the sound, they make pretty terrifying noises. I guess when I was little, I heard some wailing outside my room like someone's mouth was muffled. My door was always cracked open because of how cold it was in my room and I saw the staggering figure on all fours going past my room. I didn't hear a door close when it went by and the only 2 rooms going in the direction the figure went was my parents' and my bathroom. I looked out my room like an idiot but both doors were closed. This 6-year-old didn't go to sleep that night. I tell why what? Not me, but the poor Colombian lady visiting my parents with her husband when I was a kid. To set the environment, my bedroom and the guest bedroom were upstairs in a loft style setting. The only bathroom upstairs was at the very end at the top of the stairs to the loft. My parents' bedroom was downstairs. I was 7 years old. Parents and their friends were all drinking wine well after I went to bed. I woke from a nightmare in the middle of the night and was screaming bloody murder for my parents. Of course this woke everyone up. My dad, who sleeps naked, was tasked with throwing on his short European style robe and coming to comfort me. Of course my commotion led to our Colombian friend going to the bathroom upstairs and closing the door. Dad comforts me and leaves my bedroom. She opens the bathroom door. Keep in mind everyone was good and sloshed, and startles my dad. He starts rolling down the stairs with nothing but this tiny robe on. He hits the end of the landing and is semi-unconscious and butt naked. She shrieks, and now everyone is up, including me, with my dad rolling around naked on the staircase landing and everyone gathered around him. I remember being even more terrified and just going back to my room before anyone noticed me. Years later when I was older, I get to hear our family friend, in a thick Colombian accent, retell the story, and her words are, as he was rolling all I saw was balls and butthole, balls and butthole, balls and butthole. I didn't know if I should laugh or cry. Yep, I'd be scarred if I witnessed that impromptu in the middle of the night. OMG, balls and buttholes. I'm sorry, that's just too funny. I saw a foreign military's helicopter crash off the coast while deployed. I wasn't on watch, Navy, so I was having a smoke while chilling out on deck. I saw the explosion in the distance, asked the aft watch what was going on and we urgently went to flight quarters. It wasn't scary because of imminent danger, but I was fresh to the Navy, far away from home, and I just saw the explosion that killed people. It was hard to sleep for a couple of days after that. The time a mysterious light orb followed behind my truck in the middle of nowhere Nevada desert at night. I thought it must be a motorcycle. It followed for around a half an hour and eventually was in the bed of my truck against the glass, shining on my face like it was studying me. I was alone and screaming in horror flying down an unlit 2-lane highway. It then zipped hard into the desert. Absolutely terrifying. I've posted this many times seeking an explanation or shared experience. I've never figured out what it was. Bullets coming through our front room on Christmas Eve. Grew up in a crappy neighborhood city and the trap house a few doors down was mistaken for our house. Glad I'm still here. This isn't my story but rather one of my high school teachers. He was in bed one night. He said he was like 10 when this happened, and his window faced the front yard, where at random points in the night cars would drive by and the lights would inadvertently flash his window. So he's in bed facing the window and a car drives by and as the lights flash through his window, he sees there's a man staring at him through his window. He ran to his parents' room. They called 911 and it turns out there were not only handprints on his window but his little brother's window too. And by the way the handprints were oriented it seemed like this guy was trying to get into his little brother's room via trying to open the window. He told us that Halloween of my senior year and it gives me the chills every time I imagine just a creepy butt guy staring at you through the window, which coincidentally was always one of my biggest fears as a kid. Working an overnight in a residential neighborhood, I was on a computer around 3 AM and on the second story of the home. Suddenly a white face appeared in the corner of my eye outside the window and freaked me the frick out. It was a local cat who was taking a stroll on the small bit of roof outside the window and wanted to see what was going on inside. I woke up from an average dream to seeing a large shadowy mass about 2 feet away from my face. The only distinct detail I remember was it had a multicolored dragon eye. It didn't feel like sleep paralysis but all I could move were my eyes. When the shadow closed its eye, I drifted back to sleep. One time as a kid, I woke up from a dream where someone was trying to kidnap me from my bed, only to see a shadowy figure looming over my bed. When my brain finally woke up, I realized it was just my Homer Simpson plush toy that made its way to rest against me looking like it was standing. I was scrolling on YouTube past bedtime and swore I saw a tall, thin figure in the light glaring from the bathroom into my room. I looked and it wasn't there. Never truly looked at my room the same that night. That's why I don't have mirrors in my room. Seen so much crap like that in reflections. This happened about a week ago. I have a faucet in kitchen sink that turns on if you touch it anywhere on the faucet. Well, I was in room with my computer, door shut, and I had my baby monitor on to watch my 2-year-old son. While listening to music, I suddenly hear and recognize the sound of the kitchen sink running at full capacity. I opened the door to a dark kitchen and living room, and the faucet was running. As soon as I stepped out of the doorframe of my room to investigate, the faucet turned off. I slowly moved closer and when I was close, from my loud baby monitor, I heard my son chuckle in his sleep, something he had never done before. I get up close to the faucet and reach to manually close the faucet valve and as I do so, it turns back on at full capacity and startles the crap out of me. I seen the window light up in the room I was in, and then I saw footprints on the window. It was as if someone was walking on the window. Was weird but I never forgot about it. It's Jesus duh. While camping a guy screamed Sasquatch and ran completely out of control through thick thorny brush in the pitch black until the sound of his screams and panting faded with distance. I used to live in a 4-story house when I was a kid. I took most of my late night showers on the 3rd floor as it was closest to my room. The window in the shower was tinted and you couldn't really see in or out of it, but I always liked looking at it as you could see lights of houses flash during the night. Anyways, when I was taking a shower one night I saw a shadow that was in front of the window. I didn't think much of this because I thought it was a bird. After I finished the shower I realized there was a ladder outside my home where my shower was. A couple days later a woman was arrested for shooting people through their windows while they were on their rooms in the middle of the night. If I had not taken late night showers I'm not sure if I would be alive to this day. Jesus Christ. I was walking around my complex late at night around 9 months ago, when I very clearly saw a large black dog dart between 2 cars. I immediately got annoyed because my dog got attacked by another dog who was running around off leash. I looked around for the owner and didn't see anyone. Okay, a little bit strange, no big deal. I'll just wait for the dog to walk back out and see if it's wearing a collar. I stuck around for about a minute. No dog. I cautiously walked in between the cars and peeked in between. Nothing but empty space. It must have been a hallucination or something, but goddamn it seemed real and even looked like it cast a shadow in the dull light. My dear, you've seen the grim, an omen of death. I'm sure it's fine. Dog under my bed making that licking sound they do when they lay down to sleep. They would hide to avoid being found and put into their real bed, then heard it barking outside. Plot twist. I had a sleep paralysis dream once. That crap was scary AF. When you dream that you are sleeping but there is essentially someone letting right over you. You know that they are in the room with you and it just triggers a flight or fight response that kind of kicks you back awake. It's fricked up because then realizing you were dreaming you still have to silence your fears and maybe walk out of your room for water, turning on lights and stuff to be able to comfortably go back to bed. It really is a deja vu experience you have to shake off, like a repressed memory from childhood trauma. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.